This is TWiT.
Yik Yak is back on the App Store. This was the app that, remember, got in a lot of trouble. It's actually a very good idea for a social app. You can only chat with people within 5 miles.
The Verge's graphic was
that's a really small number.
The Verge has it in a folder of apps.
For some of us, that'd be a really small number.
Well, you live in the country.
It's great for riots. To say, if you want to do
what happened, of course, it was used in high schools. What happened? It was used in high schools and colleges, and it was because it's anonymous. It was used to bully and harass, and that's why it got pulled. Apparently, it's going to continue. It got pulled in 2017, and I think there are a lot of kids in that demographic, who were in college in 2013 to 2017, who still are traumatized by the existence of Yik Yak.
Yik Yak, patty whack.
It was valued at $400 million when it shut down. Square picked up a lot of the engineers. It's not clear who is doing it now, but it's back, and it's still anonymous.
It was such a weird time. Like, do you remember Secret came out around the same time? And then there was also Facebook Sling, where you had to respond to a message before you could read the message. It didn't last more than a few days, but that was their big insight into communication apps.
Yeah.
It was so weird.
It's kind of hard to... you kind of can see this coming. They're going to just go right back to the same problem. And yet, at the same time, I think it's a great idea for an app. It's a neighborhood, Twitter kind of.
Yeah, the anonymous part violates Wheaton's law.
Don't be a jerk. But it is the sort of app where I want to see it out there, to see what positive communities have needed something like this, and oh my God, this is exactly the resource we need. It might be relaunched not specifically as a your phone is geofenced within a 5-mile radius of your phone. It could be rebranded as it's locked to a certain campus, or it's locked to a certain company property, or it's locked to a certain Wi-Fi base station. And it would be interesting to have a social media app that only works with people that are at my own office, or again in my own neighborhood, as long as it doesn't turn into hey, there's a guy who looks kind of shifty, and because it's anonymous, but it's probably that neighbor who thinks that anybody who is a shade of brown looks a little shifty. That's the problem that we get into when we get into these apps. But I like to see these put out there, at least initially, to see what community is not being served by social media apps and by infrastructure, and what communities can be helped by this sort of stuff.
Why make it anonymous, I wonder? That seems like that's the recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it's a greater internet effort.
I built a lot of communities online.
Anonymous is always a bad idea.
It's a bad idea.
Yeah.
It never works. It always starts like, this will be great, and it never ends up that way.
Right.
It should be. It's okay to be. I think that people can protect their anonymity on a service like this. I think that so long as the service knows who you are, but if you decide that, look, I don't want people knowing that I'm a woman in this particular neighborhood, or this particular at this particular event, or maybe my the name that's on my driver's license does not reflect my true identity, and so I'd much rather be out in the world with my true identity, or even if this is who I decide to put this is the person that I created to create a firewall between my social media life and my real life. I think that those things are very, very valuable. In some cases, they protect people's health and their safety. But I think you're right, that so long as people can drift through a community without anybody knowing who they are, I think 100% privacy in a situation like this never creates a service that works well for anybody. Except for I think people who don't like consequences, to be correct.
I think that all of your arguments are completely valid. It's just very hard to do. Like, it's just hard to have a and I guess for me, the idea of being only connected to the people that are within 5 miles of me seems...
You just don't like your neighbors.
Well, you're on a farm, Alex.
I'm not.
I'm with you. I don't like my neighbors either. I don't want to.
I have a couple great neighbors, but I wouldn't want to be. I wouldn't want to be limited by them.
That's why it lends itself.
I think I have one set. I have one set of neighbors that's right down the thing that I love, and then I just don't know anybody else. Right. Like I had another set that left that were here, and they were great, and then they moved to Connecticut.
You could see though,
and I'm not very, I don't make friends
easily in schools and on campuses. That makes sense. Yeah. Because you are, everybody at your college is within 5 miles.
But that's also what made Secret so bad. Is that like people would put all their worst stuff on there, and you didn't know who they were, but you knew you were connected to them on Facebook.
Yeah,
or Twitter.
That's kind of creepy.
It's the same thing. Like they put their worst stuff out there, and you don't know who they are, but you know they're within a 5-mile radius.
They live. I have a knife.
There's another good example that happened, unfortunately, in Boston just, I think, last week, where there was open gunfire on, I think it was Newbury Street, which is the last place in Boston you would expect like someone be running into a store saying shooter, 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 stay inside, stay inside, stay inside. And so if I could see, like, if I were in the middle of the city, sometimes I kind of want to know that, gee, what's that siren that I just heard? Or, hey, why does there seem to be a whole bunch of people that are walking towards Copley Square right now? And if I find out, there's a Ben & Jerry's is there, they're giving out free ice cream, I want to know about that. And if there's a shooter on Newbury Street, I want to know, okay, guess what?
Well, that's next door.
For the next,
that's the next door app, which is not anonymous, by the way. And in fact, it's very much not anonymous. And that hasn't actually made it any better, but at least it's not.
People complaining about, like, someone's letting their dog poop in my yard. Yeah. Like that's pretty much next door.